Star entry for a plane America hopes will rock its industry to the core. It may not look very different, but this is a revolution with wings. A plane made from plastic and glue, and boy do they talk it up.
We are helping to preserve the natural resources of this planet and its beauty for generations to come.
It was the Battle of the Titans in the early 2000s when Airbus and Boeing unveiled their new giant airliners. Boeing presented the 787 Dreamliner, a mid-sized, wide-body, twin-engine jet. Airbus produced the A380, a double-decker, wide-body, four-engine aeroplane.
It's become almost a battle royal for the bragging rights. And in this case, Airbus's product is coming in quite a bit later than the Boeing product, but we probably won't see the end of this battle in our lifetimes.
The A380, or Super Jumbo, has been a huge undertaking for European company Airbus. The $12 billion project was launched in 2000 with 55 orders from 6 airlines. By the time the first airplane was delivered, 5 years later, costs had blown out to almost $16 billion. Building the giant airliner was a feat in itself. Like earlier Airbuses, the aircraft was assembled at the company's Toulouse plant in France. But the components were so big that they needed to come by canal and road, rather than on the Beluga transport aircraft that usually ferried Airbus parts to the factory. Airbus was determined to use the latest technology in its flagship aeroplane. Improvements included the addition of 2 extra high-level air outlets, taking the total to 4, enabling cabin air to be refreshed every 3 minutes. With a new wing design and lightweight composite materials making up 25% of its structural weight, the A380 has greater fuel efficiency than previous models, producing 75 grams of carbon dioxide per passenger kilometre. The composite materials include carbon fibre reinforced plastic, glass fibre reinforced plastic, and quartz fibre reinforced plastic used in the wings, fuselage sections, tail surfaces, and doors. It's also the first airliner to have a central wing box made from carbon fibre reinforced plastic, and the first to have a smoothly contoured wing cross-section. The upper fuselage of the aircraft is made from a new aluminium glass fibre material that's lighter than aluminium and more resistant to fatigue, called Glare, or glass reinforced fibre metal laminate. Glare is an improvement on earlier composites because it can be repaired using conventional aluminium techniques. Major research was undertaken into reducing the noise of the engines being designed for the Super Jumbo, with London's Heathrow Airport setting strict arrival and departure noise limits. The levels were a major consideration. 2 types of engines can be fitted to the A380, the Rolls-Royce Trent 900 and the Engine Alliance GP 7000. Only 2 of the 4 engines are fitted with thrust reversers. The engines can run on a mixed synthetic jet fuel with a natural gas-derived component, significantly reducing fuel costs. By employing weldable aluminium alloys, Airbus is able to use laser beam welding manufacturing techniques, eliminating rows of rivets and producing a lighter, stronger structure. While the Boeing 747 has an upper deck in the hump behind the cockpit, the A380 is the world's first full double-decker, with 2 full levels giving a huge boost to passenger capacity. Airbus has made much of the many A380 configurations it can provide. The business and first-class options are particularly attractive to airlines such as Singapore and Qantas, which are keenly contesting long-distance routes. Extra storage capacity is a boon to economy travelers. Business class comforts include individual widescreen television panels, computer tables, access to power, and plenty of legroom. Facilities include bars and lounges, everything the traveler needs for onboard pampering. But it's in first class where the A380 really impresses. Private cabins with full-sized beds are reminiscent of luxury travel on the airships and flying boats of past eras. The crew rest area is equally well appointed. With a capacity ranging from 525 to 853 passengers, depending on the configuration, the A380 is only suited to the world's biggest markets, according to David Learmonth from Flight International.
It'll only suit the airlines of the world which operate the world's main trunk routes, the routes between the world's really big hubs. It's much the same as what the Boeing jumbo jet, the 747, does today. It joins all the big hubs of the world.
And the big airports of the world were certainly keen to have the A380 on their premises. Sydney and Melbourne airports spent tens of millions of dollars strengthening their runways to ensure the A380 could land. The A380 took off on its maiden flight on the 27th of April 2005 from Toulouse, France, carrying a crew of 6, including chief test pilot Jacques Rosé, and filled with 20 tons of monitoring equipment. With a wingspan of 80 meters, it was an impressive sight. The aeroplane soared out over the Bay of Biscay and flew without incident, landing 3 hours and 54 minutes later. Rosé later said flying it had been like handling a bicycle. The Super Jumbo's first transatlantic flight took place on the 10th of January 2006, when it flew from Toulouse to Medellin in Colombia to test engine performance at a high-altitude airport. It then journeyed to Canada for cold weather testing. The following month, however, the A380's test wing failed during a certification test, forcing the manufacturer to add 30 kilograms to the wings to give it enough strength to meet the 150% load limit requirement. In May, the A380 arrived at London's Heathrow Airport for the first time.
Heathrow is going to be the airport for many years to come where more A380s will land and take off than anywhere else in the world, because even though for the first few years there won't be an airline based here that operates them, Heathrow is where many of the world's major trunk routes converge.
The A380 was in town to carry out compatibility tests with the terminal and airport to make sure its super jumbo size worked at all levels. Heathrow had spent more than £100 million on the passenger terminal in anticipation of the aircraft. The airport spent millions in modifications, knocking down parts of buildings and strengthening its runways. Finally, on the 4th of September, after passing an evacuation test that saw 853 passengers and 20 crew flee the aircraft in just 78 seconds, the A380 made its first full passenger flight. Airbus's marketing focused on the luxury elements available to passengers, although the focus was mostly on the comforts lavished on the privileged few in business and first class, rather than those sitting in the less salubrious surrounds of economy.
This is really a game-changing airplane. If you think about it, everybody wants more space. They want more room. We want to stretch out. We want to have our comfort, but we don't want to have an impact on the environment. This airplane actually can take you in more comfort, even if you're in coach, with a bigger, wider seat, further than a 747, while burning very little fuel, much less fuel in fact, about 80 miles per passenger seat per gallon, something you really have to think about. We'll also do it with about half the noise footprint. So you have about 35 or 40% more people and half the noise impact at places like JFK here or over at LAX, or perhaps even up in Heathrow.
The launch of the A380 was a big occasion, with hordes of media converging on an aircraft hangar to get a close-up view of aviation's new giant. In March 2007, the A380 made its first flight with fare-paying passengers to the United States, landing at New York's JFK airport.
On board of this biggest passenger airliner in the world, on its first flight with regular passengers, and it's the first flight to the United States, to New York, John F. Kennedy.
It was an exciting moment for the fortunate aviation buffs who scored a seat on the historic flight. The bar was well patronized, while business class passengers enjoyed stretching out on the full-length beds. 550 fare-paying passengers were on board the flight. The verdict was favorable, with most people impressed with the space and level of comfort available even in economy. It was also exciting for those waiting on the ground at New York's JFK International Airport. The aircraft's 262-foot wingspan made an impressive sight as it approached the runway. Across the other side of the United States, another A380 was touching down at Los Angeles International for the first time. On touchdown at both airports, tests were arranged to see how the double-decker handled on the ground, from docking at terminal gates and ground handling to exactly how long it took to refuel. Once the A380 was in the air, more orders came in from airlines around the world. However, there were production delays caused by the complexity of the cabin wiring. There were 100,000 wires and 40,300 connectors, totaling more than 500 kilometers of wiring in every plane. Airbus had originally planned to produce 18 A380 aircraft in 2009, but the delays forced the company to scale that back to 14. Airbus's popular A320 narrow-body short to medium-range airliner continued to attract customers, as did the A330 and A350 wide bodies.
Today, U.S. Airways announces that it has agreed to terms with Airbus to purchase 60 of the A320 family aircraft, narrow-body aircraft, and 10 A330 200 aircraft. As well as the most important announcement, we've agreed to firm up our commitment for the A350 XWB, which originally was 20 aircraft. We've now agreed to purchase 22 A350 XWBs.
Such strong support was music to Airbus's ears.
Now, to say that we're delighted is an understatement.
The company continued to spruik its double-decker monster, parading its high-tech design and unmatched capacity at air shows around the world. But the A350 also received plenty of attention. The wide-body twin-engine jet is scheduled to come into service by 2013.
The extra wide body firstly gives you more cabin width, a straighter side wall. The side of the cabin is straighter, which means the passenger has more space around the head and the shoulder, so they're able to be more comfortable in the window seat. We can put wider seats in the aircraft, and we can also create greater volume around the upper area for your personal baggage.
Baggage capacity and extra legroom were features welcomed by airlines competing on long-haul routes. However, some airline executives criticized the A350 project, condemning it as a band-aid reaction to Boeing's 787. Although Airbus had designed a new wing tail and cockpit and added advanced new materials, the CEO of Singapore Airlines, Chu Chun Seng, argued the company should have gone further and designed a new fuselage. Singapore subsequently ordered 20 787s. However, after initially rejecting the A350, Emirates eventually put in a big order for the jet after changes were made. The long-lived A320 remains the company's most popular airliner. The pioneering jet had been the first aeroplane to feature a fully digital fly-by-wire flight control system, and the first to contain a significant amount of composite materials. New models now sport liquid crystal display units on the flight deck rather than the older cathode ray tube displays. Airbus has also tested new winglets for the A320. However, engineers concluded that the extra weight on the wings would cancel out any aerodynamic benefits. At the end of 2008, the company announced that it would test a new blended winglet design using an original prototype A320 as the test aircraft, powered by CFM56 engines. The current fleet of A320s, which includes the A318, 319 and 321 types, are particularly popular in Asian countries which have many short routes. China has become one of the company's biggest customers. For the future, Airbus is considering joining with Brazilian aircraft manufacturer Embraer to develop a replacement for the A320, known as the NSR, New Short Range Aircraft, to come into service late next decade. The Middle East is another lucrative market for Airbus. At the 2008 Farnborough Air Show, Qatar Airways unveiled a deal to buy up to 6 Airbus A321 planes, saying it was ready to set up a budget airline to repel any attack by a rival airline on its home market. Qatar Airways signed a memorandum of understanding to buy up to 6 of the narrow-body aircraft in a deal worth around $540 million US at list prices.
Qatar Airways is ordering up to 6 Airbus A321 aircraft, 4 of which are firm, and the other 2 are options for delivery between 2009 and 2010. Our new A321s will complement our existing narrow-body fleet on regional routes in the Middle East and the Indian subcontinent. If our market share is being eroded by low-cost carriers or people that have not thought about this low-cost model correctly, just trying to venture into our market, then we will launch a low-cost carrier within 90 days. We have a registered name, we have a study, we have aircraft available that will be reconfigured very quickly within 90 days, and we will hit those low-cost carriers into their markets more aggressively, but giving a better product and a better service with lower than their cost.
In the other corner, Boeing pulled out all stops to launch its 787 wide-body twin, known as the Dreamliner. Conceived in the late 90s along with the Sonic Cruiser, the Dreamliner was the only aircraft left standing after customers rejected the higher costs of the Cruiser. Former newsman Tom Grocor was called out of retirement to front Boeing's glitzy 787 media promotion.
What a historic day it is for the future of aviation. I'm someone who spends a lot of time on airliners, so I thought it might be a good idea for me to come here and take a look at our common future.
The Dreamliner has been touted as a super efficient airplane, featuring a wing and structure optimized for shorter range flights. Boeing says it will bring the economics of large jet transports to the middle of the market, using 20% less fuel than any other aircraft of its size. Like the A380, the emphasis is on passenger comfort and increased baggage storage. But the aircraft has a significantly smaller passenger capacity, just 290 to 330 passengers compared to the A380's 500 plus.
And what's significant about the 787 is the way that it's made. It's made of a new kind of structure, carbonized structure, composite structure, which means that it's lighter, it's tougher, it's easier to manage. And being lighter means that it takes much less fuel to fly. So it represents a 20% reduction in fuel consumption and therefore a 20% reduction in fuel emissions.
Boeing boasts that the 787 isn't just cleaner and greener than other planes. Its takeoffs and its landings are also quieter. Now, there's only one problem with all of this. The 787 hasn't actually ever been on a runway. It hasn't had a single test flight. Well, Boeing had better get it right about the 787 because it's bet the company's future on it.
By 2007, when Boeing unveiled a prototype of the 787 at its Everett assembly factory, the Dreamliner had become the fastest-selling wide-body airliner in history, with airlines putting in more than 600 orders. As well as lighter-weight construction, with 50% of the aircraft made from composite material, the 787 features bleedless turbofans and an active gust alleviation system. The aeroplane can also operate with either Rolls-Royce Trent 1000 engines or General Electric Gen X. Boeing has released many futuristic images featuring interiors created by some of the world's top designers. The emphasis is on space and light, with the first-class lounge and bar looking more like the lobby of a five-star hotel than an aircraft. Proposed configurations include a restaurant-style table in business class. The emphasis on luxury has made Middle Eastern airlines such as Etihad eager launch customers. However, multiple delays have bedeviled the project. The company was originally scheduled to deliver its first airplane to All Nippon Airways in early 2009. However, as of mid-2009, the jet had yet to make its maiden flight. Boeing has been tight-lipped on reasons for the hold-up, but they are believed to include problems with assembling the parts. Boeing changed its processes to give subcontractors greater responsibility for assembling systems. This decentralization of construction streamlined the process, but difficulties have arisen when contractors have been unable to obtain all the parts they need. However, Boeing is still upbeat about its progress.
There is risk associated with any new airplane program at this stage. We still remain confident that this new plan is achievable, and we are all aligned to make it happen.
So, with the delivery date of the first Dreamliner pushed back to early 2010, the aviation world will have to wait a little longer to see another dream take to the skies. Meanwhile, the rapid growth in airline travel is causing concern among environmentalists. Both Airbus and Boeing have trumpeted the green credentials of their new aircraft, but Richard Dyer from Friends of the Earth says the reputed fuel savings might just not be enough.
We've got to put this in perspective. We're going to see aviation growth from Boeing's own predictions of something like 5% a year. So the savings this plane is going to make in carbon dioxide emissions are going to be wiped out in just 4 years. And we've got a big problem if we're going to cut carbon dioxide emissions to tackle climate change. We need to do more than bring out a new plane like this every so often.
And no less an aviation personage than Sir Richard Branson has also jumped on the green bandwagon. In 2006, the Virgin Group chairman announced he would invest $3 billion in renewable energy technologies in a joint venture with Boeing. Branson says the idea came about after the fuel bill for Virgin Atlantic grew by £300 million over 2 years. He was optimistic that the plan would succeed.
And Boeing believe that working with Virgin Fuels that we can come up with a fuel that will be able to power a jet engine. Now, it's not guaranteed, but we're going to do our best to achieve that.
2 years later, a Virgin Atlantic jumbo jet flew between London's Heathrow Airport and Amsterdam's Schiphol using fuel derived from a mixture of Brazilian babaçu nuts and coconuts. Some environmentalists labeled the flight a publicity stunt, but Branson said it showed the potential for the future. But he expects that future commercial flights will be fueled by feedstocks such as algae rather than nuts. But some air travelers are less concerned with the environmental impact of their travel than they are about the style in which they travel. At a German airline expo, manufacturers vied to present the most eye-catching, luxurious and downright decadent in aircraft interiors. From luxury seating pods lavishly decorated with a black and white paisley material to intimate private dining areas, every type of luxury cabin was on display at the Aircraft Interiors Expo in Hamburg. Comfy cabins displayed beds and other features designed to make passengers' journeys as relaxing as possible. A first-class ticket will ensure a first-class sleep on this aircraft cabin, created by Avio Interiors for the Air India B777. Another cabin allows the passenger to achieve the perfect seating position. The seats can be manipulated into a number of positions using an electronic tablet. And when you want to retreat from it all, sliding doors and tinted windows give optimum privacy. Doug Rasmussen, Vice President and General Manager of BE Aerospace, says the increase in long-haul flights has resulted in a demand for luxury travel.
What we see happening in the marketplace today is that you have very long flights, 12, 13, 14, 15 hours. And when you have those type of flights, and many times those flights are people flying them are going for business purposes, they want to be able to get a good night's sleep and work in privacy. And then there's also just wealthy individuals who have very high expectations in terms of what how comfortable they'll be in their in-flight experience.
And it's these high-wealth individuals who make up a vital component of the airline industry. Constantly on the lookout for top-end travel, money is no object, and the airlines are keen to deliver everything they expect. From widescreen movie screens to built-in computers, business travelers and the world's richest jet-setters can find a home away from home on the latest jets. German airline Lufthansa also showed off the latest in child restraint technology, the AeroKid, customized child seats designed to keep infants safely anchored in their seats in the event of turbulence or a rough landing. Similar to a car seat, the capsules face backwards and even feature a friendly cartoon design to keep the child's focus. Lufthansa has also been examining ways of integrating MP3 players with in-flight entertainment systems. Its iPod docking station allows the integration of a video or audio-capable iPod on all IFE systems.
We're taking an approach that's a little bit different than what people are doing today. We're looking forward to an IP-enabled aircraft, whereby instead of having a mini picocell site on the aircraft, we're going to be looking at hotspot coverage and voice over IP.
But as well as the latest in aeroplanes, the expo featured the traditional workhorse of the skies, the 747 jumbo jet, proving its reign is not over just yet. The double-decker still commands attention with its spacious interiors and split-level cabins. While Airbus and Boeing have kept the superjet focus on Western Europe and the United States, Russia has also been developing its own variant, the Sukhoi Superjet 100. Smaller than its Western counterparts, with a 75 to 95 seat capacity, the Superjet 100 is aimed at the regional market and will compete against the Embraer E-Jet and Bombardier's CRJ. Although deliveries were scheduled to begin in late 2008, the program has been delayed by about a year. But it successfully completed its maiden flight in May 2008, and the first two aircraft of its type have since clocked up more than 90 flights, totaling 300 hours, with the engines accumulating 2,300 hours in flight and ground tests. Already Malev Hungarian Airlines has said it will buy 30 superjets worth $1 billion. Armenian Armavia and Aeroflot have also placed substantial orders.
This aircraft is being created in close cooperation with international partners. This partnership started from the early stages of the project, when a specific idea for the role of the aircraft was determined. So the challenge was to create a quality aircraft for the world market.
Sukhoi is confident that the superjet will fill its niche market well.
It can be used over distances of 2,000 kilometers and 4,000 kilometers. And there are a lot of such long routes in Russia, as well as in America and Europe. So there is a very wide spectrum. Comfort for the passengers, width of the seats, width of the aisles. All these characteristics match those of commercial planes in the same category, produced by Boeing and Airbus. So the passengers who fly in other commercial planes and then board ours will not feel any difference.
As airline travel continues to grow apace, so does the demand for landing slots at the world's airports. As predicted 2 decades ago in a report by Britain's Civil Aviation Authority, smaller airports are coming into their own, picking up business that can't be accommodated by the bigger terminals. London's City Airport formed part of a wholesale redevelopment of a neglected area, but in the early years growth was slow.
In those days we would handle around 150 to 200,000 passengers a year, and we now handle that sort of number in a month, which has obviously made life rather more interesting for us. It could be argued the early days of the airport it was a bit of a sleepy hollow, but that was before this part of London developed in the way that we've seen it develop in the years since perhaps 92, 93. And we're now in a very thrusting, dynamic, exciting part of London.
The tiny airport is the smallest of 5 airports serving England's capital, and it's the only one sited within its boundaries.
We serve a niche market of Europe, primarily the EC and Switzerland. Some people might say that's a small market. Well, that small market's got 350 million people living in it, so we thought that might do for us.
The airport's customers particularly like the convenience of being so close to the city centre.
It's good. It's much easier to get to here than obviously taking the train or taking a taxi all the way out to Heathrow or Gatwick.
So it's very close from Wembley, Havre, and then here, where I spent just some days holidays in the Britannia.
At London's Gatwick Airport, you can now walk over moving aeroplanes following construction of the world's biggest passenger air bridge. It's nearly 200 metres long and over 32 metres high enough for a Boeing 747-400 to pass underneath. The only other bridge like this is at Denver International Airport in Colorado, USA.
Today, Gatwick handles about 30 million passengers, but by 2011, 2012, we'll handle 40 million. We've spent £100 million on this bridge and the new pier, and what it means is that passengers will now be able to go from the departure lounge straight to the gates. Last year, 3.5 million passengers had to be bussed, and they had to brave the elements, so it's very important in terms of customer service.
The air bridge was constructed off-site nearby. Moving the 2,500-ton structure into position was a logistical challenge that took several days and nights. The hardest part was putting together the bridge and its vast Y-shaped pylons, which employ innovative large-scale pins as connection points. The makers saved time on the project by using a 3D element space frame software program to identify the best structural solution.
To build such a massive structure and then move it and then erect it here on site to millimetre accuracy from an engineering perspective is difficult, given that we know that the bridge, for every change in degree centigrade that we have, moves 1.5 millimetres. So we have to take those sorts of things into account.
The result is a curved upper section that gives the structural depth needed to make a bridge of this span stand up.
Architecturally, the key things for us were making this project, making the finished structure look slender. We didn't want something that looked heavy. We wanted something that looked light with nice lines and that would stand out as a very sort of positive icon for the airport.
More than 3 million passengers crossed the bridge in its first year, replacing over 50,000 bus journeys across the tarmac, reducing fuel emissions and ground noise on the airfield. Not to be outdone, London's Heathrow Airport has opened another terminal to cope with ever-increasing demand. Terminal 5 is the cornerstone of the airport's revival plan and is designed to handle up to 30 million passengers per year and alleviate congestion at Heathrow's other terminals, all of which are slated for refurbishment or replacement in the coming years. Queen Elizabeth II opened the new terminal, touring the new facility under heavy security, less than 24 hours after a man with a backpack scaled a Heathrow fence and ran onto an active runway, briefly impairing flight operations. But it was business as usual the following day.
I'm sure that many millions of travellers will have reason to be appreciative of the thought and care that has gone into the design, construction, and ongoing maintenance of this significant new terminal. It provides an encouraging illustration of what can be achieved through working in partnership. And it says a good deal about how the essential considerations of passenger comfort, effective security, and quality of service can be combined with the ever more important requirement of environmental responsibility.
The Monarch's decision to open Terminal 5 personally, just as she opened the airport's first passenger terminal in 1955, reflects the importance of the new building, which officials believe will reverse the airport's reputation as a run-down, overcrowded facility. Another airport for the modern age is Thailand's Suvarnabhumi Airport, located 30 kilometers east of central Bangkok. It has been variously described as modern, stylish, and even beautiful. The new international airport houses one of the largest terminals in the world, boasting the latest aviation technology. Touted as a key Asian air hub, it is expected to accommodate as many as 45 million passengers a year. One frequent traveler says the buildings are lovely.
Aesthetically, it's beautiful. It has also got very nice clean lines. Okay, typically German, I would say, right? Yeah. Okay, but yet it has got its soft spots. As you can see from some of the color lights that they have, what they call set up in some of the shopping areas. Okay, I think that is a very nice soft touch.
The airport control tower has attracted lots of attention, as it is said to be the highest in the world, standing at 132 meters. President of Air Traffic Service Bureau, Preecha Pridham, says the tower gives an excellent overview of everything going on at the airport.
When we want to look around the airport, because it is the new airport is the big area. When we have the tower control tower so high, we can look around and we can see everything move in the airport. That is done. I think it's a good, excellent for the visibility throughout the area.
The new airport will take over many commercial flights from the now aging and overcrowded Don Muang Airport, which will only cater for domestic flights. The airport also boasts up-to-the-minute security systems. It is fitted with 26 CTX 9000 explosive detection machines, which are to be used for baggage screening.
We have, I think, the first biggest lot of CTX operating in this airport. So this is the concern of the passenger will be suppressed by introducing high technology to help the security measure.
Since the aeroplane hijacks that led to the destruction of New York's World Trade Center on September 11, 2001, security has become one of the key issues facing aviation businesses.
What is clear to all of us is that we face a persistent and very real threat across Europe. It is a threat which we face here in Britain as individuals, as communities and as a nation. But it is not unique to the United Kingdom. It affects us all across the whole of the European Union. And my colleagues know that their citizens face the threat just as we do here in the UK. And today, I think the fact they're here symbolised our keenness to stand together in the face of that threat.
Britain has been trialling fingerprint technology in an effort to weed out those who might have suspect documentation.
I think it's a big step forward for the traveller. We're very excited by this because once that information's captured, effectively you can pass through the airport by just having your fingerprint scanned. You know, the process that you see behind me has been largely unchanged for decades. People having to stand in queues and to show a paper-based document, i.e. a passport. What this is quite a significant step forward, where it allows that biometric read, the fingerprint, in order to be able to get past all of that normal process. So I think it will see a significant reduction in queuing. I think it will give a significant improvement in customer service, but also in terms of national security, this is a far more robust process.
Every year, 68 million passengers pass through London's Heathrow, making it one of the busiest airports in the world. The system links up information from the passport to the fingerprint of the individual. This is then processed onto a card that becomes an e-ticket that can be used to access secure travelling areas of the airport. It was tested by UK Immigration Minister Liam Byrne, who welcomed its introduction.
This is important because we think biometrics have got a massive role to play in helping keep our border secure in the future. Last year we had about 200 million passenger movements in and out of the UK, and if we're to make our border secure in a world of mass movement, we need biometric technology. So next week we're announcing plans for how we're going to take ID cards forward, and making it easier to travel and making our border secure will be a big part of those plans.
He also feels it shows how new technology can be used against terrorism and illegal immigration.
Sometimes when we talk about biometric technology, people sort of think we're talking about flights of fancy. Actually, we're not. The technology is working today, and this is a good example of how it can actually make people's lives easier when they're coming to travel too.
Across the channel at Amsterdam's Schiphol Airport, the latest security technology promises to cut queues and protect passengers. The bustling airport handles about 160,000 passengers per day at peak times and is Europe's fourth busiest hub. To step up its security and efficiency, airport officials installed a new identification system that verifies the identity of passengers by scanning the iris. With the new system, the Dutch airport has become the first airport in the world to use iris recognition for border passing. The system, developed by Schiphol and named Previum, is considered foolproof because the human iris, the coloured ring around the pupil, is unique even among identical twins. Compared to other forms of biometric identification such as finger or handprint, the iris scan is the most reliable because the eye structure hardly ever changes, while a small wound on the finger could already hamper recognition.
It will improve very much safety because you will have a full check via the iris on the chip, and that implies that it is a full check whether somebody has a valid passport. Then it is very speedy because you see here a line of passengers. They of course don't have yet a card like this because it's the first day of the introduction, but in the future you can pass the border very quickly by using this card.
Located next to the conventional custom control, Previum will be used on a voluntary basis to start with. To take advantage of this automatic border check, passengers must have their iris scanned and details stored in a credit card-sized smart card that they carry along. Dutch Justice Minister Ben Kortels was the first person to register for a Previum smart card and go through the border passage. In an effort to reduce passenger waiting times in the terminal building and increase safety, the airport has another check designed to speed up the security process and protect passengers. The airport is the first to regularly use new scanning technology to help find metals and explosives hidden under clothing. Passengers step into the cabin for 3 seconds and their body is scanned 360 degrees. Security staff can view an image of their body underneath their clothes and see anything hidden about their person.
It's a very friendly facility for passengers. They are not searched by hands and are not exposed to radiation. The passengers will spend only 3 seconds in the cabin, where his or her body will be scanned 360 degrees.
And Rutten says the technology can detect mobile phones, fluids and finally explosives at the same time. The security scan system, which uses radio waves to display head-to-toe images of people, is also being used by other airports on a trial basis. Going through the scanner takes about 3 seconds, allowing users to avoid metal detectors or body searches. For privacy, the digital images are viewed by security personnel in another room and deleted after they are viewed. As an extra privacy precaution, the passenger's head is made invisible.
Het privacygedeelte is natuurlijk een hele grote zorg geweest.
We take extra care to protect
eigenlijk door het
people's
lichaam
privacy.
heen de contouren van het lichaam
The
zien.
scanned
Ik
image
zeg ook
provides
expres de
only
contouren,
body
want we zien
contours.
niet het lichaam zelf.
And
Maar om het nog
moreover,
extra
the face of the scanned
privacy
person is
beschermd te
electronically
maken
covered.
is het gezicht niet herkenbaar op het plaatje. En is
The security officers behind the
security-medewerker
scanner
die het plaatje
do not
ziet,
have
die
eye
zit heel ver
contact
af
with the scanned person.
van degene die echt in het apparaat staat. Dus er is ook helemaal geen oogcontact.
But in the world of 21st century aviation, security is not the only consideration at the world's busiest airports. At Changi Airport in Singapore, a free game show complete with a gregarious host, brightly lit stage, special player seats equipped with handheld consoles and cash prizes keeps passengers happy while they wait for their connections. The airport, which already boasts a swimming pool and movie theatre, has been keeping passengers riveted to the departure lounge with the world's first airport game show. Passengers are asked to fill in forms to sign up to play in the game show, and the enthusiasm is high. The Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore spent $700,000 developing the What's Your Range game from scratch. The game attracted 17,000 participants in its first month of operation. With more than 350 flights arriving and departing every day, Changi Airport is one of Asia's major hubs. Fusek Mi, in charge of customer relations for the Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore, says the game was conceived primarily as entertainment for passengers.
Changi Airport is a major transfer hub. We have more than 30% of our travelers spending more than 2 to 4 hours at the airport. This, besides giving them a chance to shop and actually use our facilities, we thought that having this event, this activity would actually help entertain them. And feedback has shown that they really do enjoy themselves. There are many people who actually check in early to come to the airport to actually play this game.
Participants are given 10 general knowledge questions during a 25-minute game. Questions to tickle tired travelers include: how many characters are there in the English alphabet? In a triples game of lawn bowls, how long does a game last? How many bags of wool did Baba Black Sheep give away? Travelers give the game their stamp of approval.
It's great. It's a great way to kill the time. You don't pay anything, and the worst thing that can happen is you can walk away with a lot of money. So.
Up to 50 contestants punch in their range of answers to each question and stand to fly off with more than $1,000 in airport shopping vouchers. Travelers can take part in the 12 games played every day after they have made a purchase at any airport shop. As soon as one game show is over, the next round of passengers line up to try their luck at What's Your Range. And so far, none are reported to have missed their flights.
And time is up. Surprise, surprise. Congratulations. What's your name, man? Margarita. $10.
Recent immigrant to Australia, Margarita Pavlova, won 200 Singapore dollars while playing to pass the time.
It's interesting, and I'm not good in numbers, so I'm surprised.
Right. So you won so much money. What are you going to do with the money?
To buy some presents for my kid and my husband, to myself maybe.
At the Czech Republic's Ruzin airport, passengers have been treated to entertainment of a different kind. One local couple won a competition to hold their wedding at the airport.
We do like flying, always have liked. So airport was a chance to get together, stay together, because it was the place where we swapped the suitcases, and again we never saw each other for months, so that's why.
Robert Kruska and Miloslava Kruskova met 4 years ago, but have spent much of their time separated by travel. So when they saw the competition run by the airport at EasyJet, it was an easy choice to enter. They beat 120 competitors who had to state their reasons for wanting an airport wedding. It was their fondness for travel and frequent separation that made the jury pick them as winners. Their wedding at North 2 Terminal grabbed the attention of many travelers. But the Kruska couple really enjoyed it.
Když jste si dostatečně prokázali hlubší kořeny vašeho vztahu a je možné je přesunout dál. Ano. Slečna Miloslava Opelková, zda vstupujete dobrovolně do manželství?
Ano.
Family and many strangers watched on with happiness as the couple tied the knot. It was certainly a moment to treasure, and not the usual sight you see at the airport. The couple were a little overwhelmed with the attention.
It's a lot of emotions you can't describe easily, you just have to live it out. It's too much happening in one moment. Already, the wedding has motivated a number of people to ask about having their wedding at the airport.
The Kruskas later left for their honeymoon to Milan, Paris, Barcelona, and London. How else but by aeroplane?